What are the four horsemen in Revelation, and what is their purpose? All right, so we have gotten a lot of questions about Revelation, and I just picked one to appease you, all right? So, just kidding. That's not why this happened. So, actually, the reason that I'm answering this question is because there's a young guy here at the North Glen campus, and he was one of the very first people to text a question in several weeks ago. And every week for the last 5 weeks, he's come up to me and asked me if I could answer his question. And so, buddy, this one is for you, all right? The four horsemen of the apocalypse. If you have your Bibles, turn to Revelation chapter 6. Revelation is really the book about end times. And it's written by the Apostle John in order to give us hope as we enter into the end times. When we get to Revelation chapter 6, we're in a time period called the Great Tribulation. And if you're not familiar with end time theology, just know the Great Tribulation is the 7-year period of judgment poured out on the earth, right before the second coming of Jesus. That's what the Great Tribulation is all about. In Revelation chapter 6, we have the beginning of what we call the 7 seals. These 7 seals represent 7 judgments that are going to be poured out onto the earth. And the first 4 seals are represented by horsemen. And they have commonly become known in our culture as the four horsemen of the apocalypse. What I want to do is I want to read Revelation chapter 6, the first 8 verses to you, so that we have a context, and then I'll say a few things about it. John writes in chapter 6, starting in verse 1, "Now I watched when the Lamb opened one of the 7 seals, and I heard one of the 4 living creatures say with a voice like James Earl Jones, 'Come!' And I looked, and behold, a white horse, and its rider had a bow. And a crown was given to him, and he came out conquering and to conquer. When he opened the second seal, I heard the second living creature say, 'Come!' And out came another horse, bright red. Its rider was permitted to take peace from the earth so that the people should slay one another, and he was given a great sword. When he opened the third seal, I heard the third living creature say, 'Come!' And I looked, and behold, a black horse, and its rider had a pair of scales in his hands. And I heard what seemed to be a voice in the midst of the 4 living creatures saying, 'A quart of wheat for a denarius, and 3 quarts for barley for a denarius. And do not harm the oil and wine.' When he opened the 4th seal, I heard the voice of the 4th living creature say, 'Come!' And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and its rider's name was Death. And Hades followed him. And they were given authority over the 4th of the earth to kill with sword and with famine and with pestilence and by wild beasts of the earth." All right, when it comes to Revelation, Revelation is full of symbolism. And so anytime we seek to interpret Revelation, we have to hold with humility our interpretations. And the reason that we have to hold with humility our interpretations is because this is the future. We have not experienced this yet. And so what we're doing is, to the best of our ability, we're looking at something we have not experienced, and we're trying to put meaning to the symbolism. We're projecting into the future is what we're doing. And so when we project into the future and try to put meaning to the symbol, we have to hold our interpretations with humility. So what I believe that the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse represents is this, is the white horse represents the Antichrist. The red horse represents war. The black horse represents famine. And the pale horse represents death. And that these creatures are unleashed on earth. Now, while these characters, these creatures have been aggrandized in our culture, largely because of video games and through movies, which is part of the reason for the question here, they're not to be taken lightly. That the reason or the purpose of these 4 horsemen is to bring judgment on the earth. That's their purpose, that they're bringing judgment on the earth. And the reason that this is given to us by John in Revelation chapter 6 is so that we would know and see the warning that judgment is coming. Have your house in order. Share the gospel with your friends and your family. Live not in fear, but with the mentality that God will one day deal harshly with the sin of this world. That what John is telling us is you can count on that. That all of the sin and darkness that we experience in this world, that one day God is going to deal harshly with that sin. Be ready for it. That's the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. So speaking of Revelation, the second most asked question, this isn't in your notes, I'm just giving this one to you as a bonus, all right? This is free. is when are we going to preach on Revelation? All right? Second most asked question of this series. The answer to that is I don't know. Not in the future, all right? Not in the immediate future. Like I said, last week we spent some time, Tim, Chris, and I, praying and putting together the 2020 preaching schedule, and we really believe that we were able to discern what God wanted for this church. And I think it's going to be really good, but it does not include a study of Revelation next year. And so for those of you who really long for that, I just want you to know that we have some really great teachers here, really great teachers who have spent a lot of time in Revelation. And they have really good interpretations, and they're good teachers to be able to communicate what those interpretations are, and they hold those interpretations with humility. And so I've reached out to a few of them to see if they would be willing to do a 13-week study next summer through Revelation. It's kind of like an elective course through the summer for those of you who want to take it. And like I said, they're really great teachers. The best that I can tell is that the only thing that they have wrong is that they are pre-trib or mid-trib rapture people when the Bible clearly says that it's post-trib, all right? So, anyways, if you're interested in that, you can look forward to that possibly happening next summer, all right?